Good morning. My name is Marna Whittington. As chair of the Budget Committee of the Board of Trustees, I would like to welcome everyone to today's public meeting of the Budget Committee. This meeting has been duly advertised as a public meeting in accordance with the Sunshine Act and is therefore open to members of the public as observers. A quorum is present for the transaction of business. Participation in the meeting is limited to members of the Budget Committee and those the committee has invited in advance to take part. Members of the Executive Committee have been invited to today's meeting. Due to the restrictions in place in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the majority of the university's facilities remain closed. Therefore, this meeting is being streamed on YouTube and is also being recorded. The recording will be made available via the Board of Trustees website later this week. As was announced, a quorum of voting members of the Budget Committee is present for the transaction of business at today's meeting. I would like to now ask Mr. Harry Sastry, Senior Vice Chancellor and Chief Financial Officer, to provide an overview of the proposed operating and capital budgets for fiscal year 2021.
Thank you. This proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 has gone through a deliberative process within the university, including inputs from senior leadership, board members, and the shared governance of our university planning and budgeting committee, whose members include faculty, staff, and student representatives. This budget proposal reflects a commitment from the Commonwealth that Governor Wolf signed into action and includes a full year of funding to the state-related universities at the same level as last fiscal year. We are deeply grateful to our leaders in Harrisburg for maintaining their investment in the future of our Commonwealth in these difficult times. Like all universities, the COVID-19 pandemic has strained our resources. At the end of the fiscal year in June, COVID-related net costs and lost revenue totaled more than $50 million, and we expect those expenses will continue to rise. In the upcoming academic year, many of those costs will support investments in technology to create a flexible teaching and learning model and guard the health and safety of our community. Despite the challenges of the current environment, we are expecting relatively stable enrollment apart from international students. The budget I will walk through today reflects these difficult circumstances. At the same time, it supports the university's vital mission of academic excellence, research, economic development, and community engagement, while supporting the health and safety of our students, faculty, staff, and community at large. The University of Pittsburgh's proposed operating budget for fiscal year 2021 is $2.4 billion, in line with last year's operating budget. The projected research base for fiscal year 2021 is $878 million, roughly equivalent to last year's amount. This reflects our institution's role as a global leader in research and innovation. This has never been more important as Pitt researchers work to unlock the mysteries of preventing and treating COVID-19, including working tirelessly to develop a vaccine. Tuition rates for the 2020-2021 academic year will not increase. This applies to all students at all campuses and schools, undergraduate and graduate, both in-state and out-of-state. Also, there will be no increases in room and board rates across all campuses for the 2020-2021 academic year. Given the financial hardship COVID-19 will continue to have on our students and their families, holding tuition rates flat was the right thing to do. The proposed budget continues to fully fund our Pitt Success Program, which is designed to make higher education more affordable and accessible for students and their families. The proposed capital budget of $140 million for fiscal year 2021 represents a reduction of more than 78% compared to the $640 million capital budget for fiscal year 2020. This reflects a strategic pause that will allow us to deliberately and thoughtfully reconsider our building needs, including how we use spaces for offices, classroom, residence halls, and our other student areas. At the same time, this budget enables us to continue prioritizing essential renovation and preservation projects, as well as the health and safety of Pitt students, faculty, staff, and visitors. As we worked through the budget process, there was a gap between expected revenues and expenses. Some of the key factors driving this gap included enrollment impacts, increased investments in health and safety, as well as upgrades needed to implement the Flex at Pitt learning model. The magnitude of that gap, along with the uncertainty of future costs related to the pandemic, drove several difficult decisions, such as freezing salaries for the faculty and staff for the 2021 fiscal year, and continued controlled hiring process, which was initiated in April 2020. We also are implementing permanent budget reductions that will impact university responsibility centers by 3.7% on average, as well as reducing budgets on a temporary one-time basis by 5% on average. We will be working with our responsibility centers on finding efficiencies while preserving strategic priorities as they complete their budgets in early September. The budget proposal also calls for the use of contingency reserves. While these reserves are limited, this coupled with budget reductions will enable us to match last year's budget despite facing continued costs due to COVID-19. This will be a challenging year for everyone at Pitt. I appreciate the collaboration of our budget planning partners as we work together to create sustainable outcomes in support of the university. Thank you.
A resolution recommending that the Executive Committee of the Board of Trustees approve the university's proposed operating budget and proposed capital budget for fiscal year 2021 is included in your materials. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. The resolution is approved. Is there any new business to be brought before this committee? If not, the public meeting of the Budget Committee is adjourned. As a reminder, the public meeting of the Executive Committee will begin momentarily. Members of the Executive Committee should remain in the virtual meeting. Thank you.
Chairperson Richards, we do have a quorum for the Executive Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Good morning. My name is Tom Richards. As chairperson of the Board of Trustees and Executive Committee of the Board, I would like to welcome everyone to today's public meeting of the Executive Committee. This meeting has been duly advertised as a public meeting in accordance with the Sunshine Act and is therefore open to members of the public and observers. A quorum is present for the transaction of business. Participation in the meeting is limited to members of the Executive Committee and those the committee has invited in advance to take part. Members of the Budget Committee have been invited to today's meeting. Due to the restrictions in place in response to COVID-19, the majority of the university's facilities remain closed. Therefore, this meeting is being streamed on YouTube and is also being recorded. The recording will be made available via the Board of Trustees website later this week. As was announced, a quorum of voting members of the Executive Committee is present for the transaction of business at today's meeting. At this time, I would like to call on Marna Cupp-Whittington, Chair of the Budget Committee of the Board of Trustees, to present the report of the Budget Committee.
Thank you, Chairperson Richards. At its public meeting today, the Budget Committee approved a resolution recommending that the Executive Committee approve the university's fiscal year 2021 proposed operating budget and proposed capital budget. These proposed budgets were distributed to the Executive Committee in advance of today's meeting. I would like to note that the university is recommending that there be no increase in tuition for the coming year. Chairperson Richards, on behalf of the Budget Committee, I move that the Executive Committee of the Board of Trustees adopt a resolution approving the university's fiscal year 2021 proposed operating budget, which includes the proposed tuition rate schedule and the proposed capital budget.
Thank you, Marna. May I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. The resolution is approved. Is there any new business to be brought before this committee? If not, the public meeting of the Executive Committee is adjourned, and I wish everyone a safe and healthy summer.